Message from Starfleet Command, top priority.
You are listening to the TrekRanks podcast, a member of the Tricorder Transmissions Podcast Network. This is episode 146, featuring the top 5 Lower Decks Season 3 moments. Welcome, Star Trek fans. I am Jim Moorhouse. I'm the host of the TrekRanks podcast, and tonight we are doing another season recap show. It's our third for the great series, Star Trek Lower Decks. And we are going to get Bold Boimler tonight and break down our top 5 Lower Deck Season 3 moments. As you might have expected, it was another phenomenal season. And our guests tonight are fantastic, both returning after way too long of a gap. First up, he's Thad Hait. He's from the Infinite Diversity podcast from the Eastern Penn Corridor. He's been here 4 times previously, last time on episode 101. Thad, welcome back.
I am glad to be back. Always happy to be on TrekRanks.
Love it. And our other guest from Women at Warp, it's Sue Kisenwether from the Brooklyn sector, who it's almost been 100 episodes. It was episode 62, Trek Pets. Sue, welcome back.
This episode 62. Wow.
We got a lot. We've been doing it a long time now. I can't believe there's almost 150 of these. It's tough to get. Scheduling is the hardest thing about this show. So, Sue, you were saying you and Thad, you've never podcast together?
That's right.
We have not.
We've known each other for so many years, both online and in person now.
Yeah.
And we have never podcasted together.
Right. Well, we're doing it here on TrekRanks tonight. I love it.
Making history.
Exactly. All right. Going to be a great show. Let's get started with our TrekRanks recalibration.
What are you recalibrating?
Everything. It's a sweeping, a recalibration of all systems.
As regular listeners will know by now, general order number 1 of the TrekRanks charter is that we love Trek, and we love to rank Trek via some deep dive topics just to get the conversation started. And remember, it's not about the ranks. That's just our excuse to talk about Star Trek. And as the Vulcan Master likes to tell us each week,
Infinite diversity.
In infinite combinations.
No wrong answers. It's not about being right or definitive in any way. It's just about sharing the things we love about Trek. And we love it all, from TOS to TNG, straight through to Enterprise, and the Kelvin timeline, and now Discovery, Picard, Strange New Worlds, Short Treks, Lower Decks, and Prodigy. It's all fair game here on the TrekRanks podcast.
Black alert. Black alert.
And a reminder that this episode of TrekRanks is current through 863 episodes of Star Trek, which obviously takes us right to the finale of Season 3 of Lower Decks, The Stars at Night.
Have boosted power to the communications bandwidth.
We appreciate that, Mr. Kim, and you can find TrekRanks on Subspace at TrekRanks.com, and you can also contact me directly on Twitter at TrekRanks or at Enterprise Extra, and you can also call and leave us a message with your own picks at 609-512-LLAP. That's 609-512-5527. Okay, so to wrap it up, Thad and Sue, let everybody know how they can get a hold of you on Subspace. Thad.
Best place to find me is on Twitter at Tyrannicus. That's Tyranicus, where I talk about Star Trek a lot. And if you want to hear me talking about Star Trek more, I am on Infinite Diversity on the BQN podcast network, where we talk about every new episode of Star Trek. You can hear new episodes every Tuesday while Star Trek is airing, which is pretty much all the time these days.
Do you nitpick about rank pips on that podcast?
I do.
That's why we love you. Sue, how can people get a hold of you?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Spaltor. That's Spaltor. I am not super active, but when I am, it's mostly about Star Trek. Or you can find me on Women at Warp, womenatwarp.com, or at Women at Warp on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, not TikTok, because we're old.
You may have heard of that. Women at Warp. You have. Okay, I think we're ready now to jump into our level 1 diagnostics and get into this show.
Run a level 1 diagnostic series. Come.
All right, so we're once again using the TrekRanks matrix to break it all down for our season recap shows. So again, we're not doing 5 just random episodes or titles to highlight, but we are breaking it down. So in round 5, we are doing our top production design elements, like anything like a prop or a ship or costume or score. anything you want to highlight there. Round 4 is our top creative or performer or actor or behind the scenes person, anyone that connected with you in terms of what they were doing to create the show. Round 3 is the Dabo round, a complete wildcard round. You can pick anything you want. Round 2 is all about your favorite character. You can do that however you want, favorite narrative or most interesting character, however you want to look at it. And round 1, that's obvious. That's what we do here at TrekRanks. It's your favorite episode of the season. And then we'll add a few more outlying picks in our secondary systems. All right, just needed to run through that again for any first-time listeners. So now let's get into our prime directives.
But what you're proposing is exactly the kind of tampering the Prime Directive prohibits.
Okay, Thad, let's start with you. How did you define your Prime Directive to finalize your picks here with the TrekRanks matrix that we're using?
Well, since this is, a bit of a different TrekRanks with the individual things for each category, I don't know that I had a specific Prime Directive in mind other than what I thought best fit each particular thing. But I definitely was trying to think of things that I really like about Star Trek Lower Decks is, I guess, my Prime Directive.
Which is hard to narrow down sometimes. How about you, Sue?
Very much.
How did you think about it?
Yeah, usually when I have this kind of task, I try to be clever. Right. And this time I was just like, I want to pick my honest favorite, but it was so hard that I cheated. And my Prime Directive is basically having backups.
I love it. Well, that's also why we have secondary systems, so you can rattle off your extra picks. I love it. Cheating encouraged always. TrekRanks. All right, so for me, I just did for our recap shows. I usually try to not repeat myself from previous recap episodes for that series. So I definitely looked at that, although I cheated on that one. And then my other Prime Directive is try and cover as much ground as possible. So I definitely did that tonight. Other than that, just chose my favorites and the things I wanted to talk about, which is what we do on TrekRanks. Okay, first Cadecaton, introduce us to the new order of things. Let's get into this.
It'll be alphas like us that determine the future of this quadrant. That will be the new order of things.
Thank you, First Cadecaton. As always, a quick reminder on how we're going to go through the order of things. First, everyone will start with their 5-word summary and a hashtag to tease their pick. Then we'll each reveal our Lower Decks Season 3 moments for the specific round and the reasons we're highlighting it. And we're going to highlight one episode to associate with that pick. And at the end, we'll ask everybody for a few secondary system selections for the picks that just missed our list. And as always, if you have any duplicate picks, make sure you listen for the Defiant Torpedoes. We actually saw a Defiant ship. Oh, my God. Okay, I just realized that. Okay, Thad, we're going to start with you. What's your number 5 pick for your top 5 Lower Deck Season 3 moments, production, design, element?
Okay, so my 5 words are incandescent okudograms from the 80s, and the hashtag is classic 24th century design. And it is specifically the way that the Elcar's panels on the Cerritos look. In general, the Cerritos is designed to be an homage to TNG, but specifically the panels on the wall for the Elcars are lit in the center and they get a little dark towards the edges because they are referencing the way the panels looked on TNG, where they were lit by incandescent light bulbs in the center of the panel.
That is amazing. I think I knew that but didn't know it. Like, I'd never thought about it. It's incredible. What episode did you pick to represent it?
Well, I noticed it when watching Crisis Point 2 Paradoxus, when Mariner is in the room with Ransom. The panel behind her above the replicator is one of the examples that does it.
Is that the first time you noticed it? So maybe
it's the first time I noticed it. It's been going on forever, but I hadn't seen it before.
Yeah, I don't think I've heard it said out loud, and now you're saying it. It's like, yeah, of course. Incredible. I mean, the Elcars on this show just pop so beautiful. Mm-hmm. And Sue, what's your take on that super specific Elcars reference? I love this.
This is something I never would have clocked, but I am not surprised that Thad did.
Right. No one listening is.
And I love it. I mean, it's a perfect pick that completely tracks.
It's a thing of beauty, and it will play into my pick. Sue, let's go to you. What is your production design element?
All right. So my 5 words and a hashtag are just think about Parisi squares, hashtag nightmare fuel. And
oh no.
From Mining the Mind's Mines,
Yep.
I chose all of the nightmares.
Oh my God, this is a deep cut.
Our Klingon clowns and our giant Borg snake and Dorian werewolf.
With fat left hands.
Yeah. Kukulkan. Like what? I mean, I specifically love TAS callbacks in Lower Decks because I don't think TAS gets enough love. So yeah, I just the design and the creativity, and it was just, I loved every second of it. So ridiculous.
It is bonkers. my favorite part is, well, first Jennifer, but then Jennifer when she becomes whatever that creature was and was like, hey babe, let's get comfortable. It's so good. Yeah, it's absolutely bonkers. There's so many, you can't barely describe it. There's so many crazy things happening. And the Leah Brahms. I love seeing Leah Brahms. So good.
Do you want to go look at the warp core with Leah Brahms?
And the Parisi squares was was it Boimler or Rutherford? It was Boimler.
That was what Stevens told them to avoid thinking about like their fantasies or nightmares. Just think about Parisi squares.
Right, but then later Rutherford was like mumbling like ion mallets, tight blue sequence, ion mallets, tight blue sequence.
Come with me. We could increase gravimetric power limits all night long.
Rutherford, stay strong. Breezy squares, iron mallet, shiny blue uniforms. Come on.
Yep.
I love it. Okay, that's so good. Thad, what's your take on Parisi, on the nightmare fuel from Mining?
Oh, I loved it. It was so good. The whole process. I loved. One of my favorite things is that Mariner's fantasy and her nightmare are so close to each other.
Right.
Like her fantasy is that Jennifer loves her, and her nightmare is that Jennifer wants to spend the rest of her life with her. It's like it was so good.
Yeah, it's perfect. And even the sidecar for Boimler.
Yes.
When the guy shows up, he's gonna get in the sidecar. He's like, I don't want to drive. I'm not a driver. All right, here we go. My production design elements. It's a little bit plays into your pick there, Thad. So my 5 words and hashtag: a system of checks and balances, hashtag beautiful to look at. And it's this realization for me, it's all of the background scenic art in this show. And I'm going super broad on this one because as I was doing my rewatch and just watching it again, it just kind of hit me for the first time. There's like a weird dichotomy between the characters and then the setting for the characters. So the characters are like, they're basically cartoons. They're stylized a bit. They're kind of narrow and angular, and they sometimes have exaggerated motions and facial expressions. But the background on this show, whether it's the action sets, the planets, the ships, the bridge, the master systems displays, all the action sequences with ships, they barely look animated to me. Half the time they look like real or CGI. They're just so beautiful, and they're so picture perfect to what Star Trek looks like. And it just kind of hit me that the way that dichotomy between the two things is really amazing. And I would call out the artists, but there's like 100 of them. Basically anybody working behind the scenes is responsible for how this show works. So I'm going to highlight Barry J. Kelly, who's one of the supervising directors, who's one of the key guys behind the scenes, who's directed a few episodes and kind of coordinated the look of the show. I got to meet him at the press event before this season started here in LA. Really cool dude. So I could have chosen any episode. The episode I'm picking is the least dangerous game for the orbital skydiving sequence, which I loved and was just kind of beautifully shot. And it was punctuated by Ransom's perfect lava tubes and the hilarious psychic baby, evil computer, and sentient volcano, which it all just looked amazing. So scenic art, everything in the background is basically what I'm picking. Thad, what's your take on that?
It provides a series of checks and balances.
Yeah, that's right. It's so funny.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That is one of the things that really just makes this show is that the visuals are honestly stunning.
Yes.
In season 2, and then now even more in season 3, they've really upped their game on how the show looks, and it just looks fantastic. Like the ship models are amazing.
Yeah. I mean, it looks like you could put live action Picard into these scenes.
Oh, yeah.
And it would work. It would just, it's crazy. It's stunning is the perfect word.
Yeah, there are times specifically when there are, in space scenes that I forget this is animated.
Right, exactly.
It looks like a model being shot on, the velvet background with the holes poked in it, or better even sometimes. Yeah. It's the amount of work that, as you're saying, goes into the scene, goes into the background. We're not just focusing on, the main character of a scene, right? They're putting time and energy and effort into every aspect of the show, everything that hits the screen. And it's wonderful.
Yeah, it's literally every frame. It's amazing. I don't know how they do it. Incredible. All right, let's go to round 4 and our creative or behind the scenes person or actor. Thad, what's your pick?
Okay. My 5 words are distinctive voice for compelling character. And my hashtag is Baby Bear. I'm specifically referring to Fred Tatasciore performance as Shax.
I love this.
Because it is just fantastic. Now, Fred Tatasciore is a veteran voice actor, and you can tell he really puts everything into this role, and it is just incredible. The episode that I would pick in this instance is The Stars at Night, for the scene where Shax gets to finally eject the warp core.
Right. So exciting.
Because, he just plays that so well.
Yeah, and in this episode, he plays soft really well for maybe one of the first times where it's like, oh, it's really sweet. His feelings are hurt. He's really down, and then he's really emotional when he gets to eject the warp core, which is just a brilliant joke on its own. The guy is an incredible actor. And I remember when I don't watch much animation. So when he was hired, I read all this stuff like, this guy's a legend. I was like, I never heard of him. Let me check his IMDb page. Holy crap. There's like 2,000 lines on that page. The guy is seriously an animated voiceover legend. It's incredible. Sue, what's your take on Fred Tatasciore?
He's so good that he got a planet named after him.
Right. Tatasciore 9. Yeah.
No, it's an excellent pick. I mean, I don't think I have talked to a single person about this show who doesn't love Shax.
Yeah. And one of the highlights of this season was his interactions with the Now Visitor and
gosh, yes.
So good. So good. That might come up later. We'll see. All right. Sue, your creative or behind the scene person.
I'm almost embarrassed. This might be my most basic pick ever.
We love basic. We love deep cuts. We love it all. Let's hear it. Mine's pretty basic, so I don't think it's going to be more basic than mine.
Thoughtful fan feedback isn't ignored. Hashtag and it shows. Mike McMahon.
Yes, I'm so glad you picked him. Yes. That's great. He is. What a good dude.
Mm-hmm. So here's the thing, right? Early on in this is going to be more of a personal story, I guess. Early on in the show, there was a lot of discussion on Twitter, and I participated in some of that discussion in which I called the early seasons of Lower Decks, quote, aggressively heteronormative. And somebody got in a fight with me, and I was like, and I explained myself, and I was like, look, when there are this many people and we see lots of relationships, and every single one of them is a straight presenting relationship, that to me is aggressively heteronormative. And, then they fought with me about, well, we only know 10 people. I'm like, I have never been in a room with more than 3 people where I've been the only queer one. Anyway.
It's really fair to say that about season 1. Really, I mean, I noticed it, and I don't notice stuff like that.
So I think I think it was during season 1 or after season 1 that this conversation happened. After that, Mike McMahon's doing some interviews, and he brings up in several interviews that there was somebody on Twitter who called the show aggressively heteronormative. And my reaction was, holy crap, that was me. And like, I had no idea he was even reading this conversation, right? Because he wasn't tagged in it. So he's paying attention on Twitter. He's listening to fans. And he took it to heart. He didn't get mad about it. Right. He was like, I'm hearing that feedback, and we're going to do things different, is what he always said. And then later at Mission Chicago this past spring, he stopped by the Women at Warp table, and he's just talking to us, and he on his own brings it up again. And he goes, somebody called the show aggressively heteronormative. And I was like, that was me.
That's awesome.
And he starts laughing, and we're talking about it. He's like, am I doing better? And that's the thing, is like, he cares about it when it's when it's not just like, this show sucks, right? And when you have feedback, when you have criticism and it's thoughtful, they want to know, and they listen and they incorporate it. And then just a few weeks ago at New York Comic Con, I was in the Solar Opposites press room, of all things, and he recognized me, and he doesn't know my name, but so it's like, oh, you're the aggressively heteronormative one, like, except like not like the opposite of that. I mean, that's my personal experience with it, but I have seen it happen with other people, maybe not to this degree, right? And I certainly didn't push for it or ask for it, but like, we know that he watches some of our favorite creators on YouTube. Like, we know he watches Jessie Gender, and he went up to her in Chicago as well. We know that he is on Twitter looking at the hashtags, looking at the art that people make and the things they create, and liking and retweeting and interacting. And it's just, it's wonderful, because we know that as a creator, he is a fan, and he's a fan like us. Seriously. So, and taking that feedback and incorporating it into the show in order to make it hopefully better. So, Mike McMahon.
Sue, I love this pick. One of my favorites. I mean, not just because it's Mike McMahon, but your reasonings for it. And I'm a correspondent for TrekCore or whatever over the years, and done a lot of these press events. The guy is so great on the red carpet. He's the nicest guy. He loves TrekCore. He reads it. He reads all the stuff on there. He really does listen, follow, and not from a creative side, but also from a fan side. He's a fan. The guy is a legitimate. He's so knowledgeable. I remember before the show ever appeared, it just been announced. Some of the writers and Mike McMahon were at STLV, and I was doing my Rogan Danar cosplay, and they stopped me. They were taking pictures, and I was like, you guys, you don't know who I am, right? You guys don't know who Rogan Danar is. It's way too, I'm like literally thinking there's no way. And all of them are like, shut up, dude. We know who Rogan Danar is. Basically, they're giving me like you'll see. Because they referenced him in the first season. I mean, it was, anyway, the guy is a legend. I love that story. Aggressively heteronormative. I love it. Thad, what's your take on Mike McMahon and this pick?
I didn't give you an episode.
Sorry. Oh, give me the episode. Yeah, what's the episode?
I just realized.
I'm so excited.
For the episode for this one, I picked Here All Trust Nothing.
Okay.
Not only because we're on DS9, but because Mariner has to figure out how to navigate her girlfriend's friends.
Oh, yes, that's great.
So.
Yeah. Just keep circling. Thad, what is your take on Mike McMahon?
Oh, Mike McMahon is incredible. He's just a very enthusiastic, very friendly, very talented person. I think also had the honor of meeting him at a convention, got to talk to him for a little bit, and he's very approachable and down to earth. Like, he will geek out about Star Trek with anybody. And I know, like, whenever I tweet about Lower Decks, Mike McMahon is there liking that tweet, like, every time, even if it's not during like the run of the show. Like, it can be in like January when it's been months since we've had Lower Decks, and I'll just tweet something about Lower Decks, and one of the likes is going to be Mike McMahon every time.
It's true. He does. He's very active on Twitter. It's amazing. The guys couldn't have covered it any better than that. Great job, Sue. I love this pick. All right, so mine's pretty basic too. Here we go. My 5 words and a hashtag. Starfleet is actually for her. Hashtag progressive progression And my pick is Tawny Newsome. And I picked her in season 1, and I'm picking her again in season 3 because the kinetic energy in her performance, she's hilarious. She's caustic. She's just whip smart, just an incredible sense of humor. And she adds so much to it. She's just a legendary performer. I can't wait to see her on Strange New Worlds. I mean, that is going to be incredible. So beyond everything we know about Tawny Newsome and Mariner as a character, this season really played out so differently. I did not expect to see it come here to light in season 3, where we showed this significant progression and growth for this character. And I'm choosing her because of how that came across on the screen when you realize that Ransom and others on the crew have finally noticed that she really has kind of pulled it all together and started to perform. And he gives her a glowing review in Crisis Point 2. And then in Trusted Sources, you see her delivering this thoughtful praise of the ship and the crew that again, literally no one thought was possible. And even when she's kicked off the ship, before everyone realizes their mistake, when she comes back, she does it with this super high level of maturity. Like, she doesn't hold it against anybody. She's thanking everyone. She's kind of super understanding for why they may have thought that. And the Stars at Night, which is the episode I picked, it literally ends with her saying for the first time that Starfleet is for her and that she wants to be here. And it's awesome. I was emotional about it. I just really loved it. It sold me. So I love those scenes at the end with Petra Aberdeen and the indie archaeologist funded by Admiral Picard, which was so awesome, where she's having fun, but she realizes she wants to be in Starfleet, thinks she can help. And then her going out to bring all the other Cali class ships in to save the day. It was just like the end of season 3 is Mariner coming in to save the day. You had Riker do it before. You've had the Cerritos do it before. Now it's Mariner. It's so great. Written by Mike McMahon. I love that episode. And I love Tawny Newsome. Sue, what's your take?
I think this is a phenomenal pick. The thing about Mariner, I know we're talking about Tawny, but the thing about Mariner
it's a little bit both. But
is that, like, the implication in the first couple seasons is that she's been around Starfleet longer than, like, her cohorts, than Tendi or Rutherford or Boimler, and that, like, something has happened to her that has made her, like, lose faith in kind of a way. And what we have watched happen, especially in season 3, is her finding that faith in Starfleet again.
Yeah.
And that comes across in the performance. I understand that is the job, but she does phenomenal work.
She really does. And it's subtle, it's not in your face. It's really well done. Thad, what's your take?
Oh, Tawny Newsome is incredible. I've actually been a fan of hers for years before Lower Decks. She has a podcast that's called Yo, Is This Racist?
Right, yeah.
Where people just send things asking, hey, is, this racist or is that racist? And then she and the co-host talk about it and decide whether or not something is or isn't racist. And they do it hilariously too, because
of course
you could do that podcast completely seriously, but that would not be Tawny Newsome's style.
Right.
But beyond that, she's phenomenal as an actress. She was really good in the Netflix show about the Space Force. She's great in Lower Decks as Mariner. I think Lower Decks as a show works because of Tawny Newsome.
Right.
And also she's got the official Star Trek podcast now with Paul F. Tompkins, and they do a great job on that too.
And add to it that she's a fan, right? She knows Star Trek. It's like, that's just mind-blowing that how well
right, and that's why she works so well on that the official podcast. Like, if it was just two actors who didn't know Star Trek, then it would not be interesting. But it's great because they're able to make those same deep cut references that we as fans make.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, she is amazing. Can't wait to see her on Strange New Worlds. Mm-hmm. Okay, round 3. It's the Dabo round. It's our wild card round. Dabo! Thad, what's your wild card pick?
Okay, my wild card pick is pretty much the entirety of Hear All, Trust Nothing. Sorry, I did that out of order, but my 5 words are beautiful take on an old friend, #what you leave behind. And it is Lower Decks' love letter to Deep Space Nine. I had the biggest grin on my face watching that entire episode, just seeing DS9 like that, getting to see Kira and Quark, Promenade, and just everything. It was fantastic. I loved it from start to finish, and it was just amazingly done in Lower Decks.
And then the visuals on this thing just look so perfect. Just so perfect. And God, we could talk just about this episode nonstop. The warmth of just the grin you have. I mean, I think everyone was the same. That everyone's just watching it like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. We're seeing this. And it felt so good to see the promenade and all these locations. Yeah, it's incredible. And then the Kira and Shax and Quark. It's just so much. Sue, what's your take on Hear All, Trust Nothing?
Yeah, this is the episode I tried to avoid picking from because I knew it would come up a lot.
Yeah, exactly.
It's what are my words? The instant I saw the screener for this episode, and we drop out of warp, and there is Deep Space Nine, and we are all staring in awe of the pylons. I was just like, oh, the internet's gonna lose its shit.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's what happened. It was so lovingly done, and it was so well executed. And I mean, especially Nana Visitor,
she was
incredible because she was able to play Kira and make through the lens of Lower Decks. So she was still Kira, but there was more playfulness maybe to her than we saw live action in Deep Space Nine. And those scenes with Kira and Shax are just, I think they're my top of the episode.
They're legendary. It's again, that's just how smart Mike McMahon is to weed that in. And by the way, too, the very first moment when we see the ship and you're having all those feelings, and then Shax in the back going, tacky fascist Cardassian eyesore. It's so good. Right away that just breaks up everything. You're like, so awesome.
Captain Freeman, we're approaching the rendezvous point. Bring us out of warp.
Tacky Cardassian fascist eyesore.
Helm, just buy me
and I want to add that so Kira, you're right about the more playfulness. It fits, but the first time we see Kira, she's solemnly walking through ops into Sisko's office. She stares at the wormhole,
and she's still got the baseball on the desk,
right? And she makes a baseball reference to like Starfleet throwing them curveballs. It's incredible, which is all a tribute to Sisko and her relationship with him, and just her pensive look at the wormhole was beautiful before all the hijinks start. And it wasn't even like hijinks; it's not the right word, but before a Lower Decks episode started. So anyway, it's genius, so good. I love it. Okay, what is your round 3 pick? Dabo Round. Sue, what do you got?
She has lost all control. Hashtag it's only logical.
Oh yeah.
Talin's back.
Let's fast forward to season 4 right now. Oh my God.
Look, it lasts for like 15 seconds.
I can't believe you picked this. So this is in my secondary systems, but I was like, I'm so excited about it. I'm excited about anything.
I'm so excited. So obviously the stars at night. Right.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
But yeah, I'm so excited. And it was honestly to the point that like those few seconds of screen time telling us she's going to come back and she's going to be working with Tendi of all people.
Oh, so good.
That the excitement brought this into a top 5 for me, for sure.
Oh my gosh! Hi, I'm Tendi. Welcome to the Cerritos. We're going to be training together.
Greetings. I am Talin. Is there someplace quiet where we can discuss my orientation?
First, you gotta meet everyone. Guys, this is my new study buddy!
I love this. I love this so much. And I think I don't know this for a fact. I think this plays into your Mike McMahon pick, because when Wedge Dudes landed and the response to Talin was it was overwhelming. It was incredible. Like I can't believe the way people were talking about it. And his response was like, he acknowledged, we see that. We're gonna do something with her. And I feel like this something is what they did. They said, let's add her right at the end here. They're probably just finishing up that season. They added her at the last minute, and now she's going to be part of season 4 in some capacity. Who knows at what level? But I feel like that moment is directly from all that Wedge Douche feedback. Amazing. Thad, what's your take on T'Lyn?
Oh, yeah, T'Lyn is amazing. Wedge Douche is probably my favorite episode of all of Lower Decks.
Yes,
and T'Lyn is a huge part of that. And I am really glad you picked her, Sue, too, because she was on my secondary systems for a production design element, which is not going to, which you both probably know exactly what it's going to be. It's the fact that she is wearing a Starfleet provisional rank insignia.
Oh,
it's the first time we've seen that since Voyager. Actually,
really?
Yes. Although, actually, we'll have seen it 2 times.
I'm pretending to be
night.
interested in this
because we also see it in the Prodigy episode that aired the same night as Stars at Night. But yes,
I caught it in Prodigy. I didn't catch it on T'Lyn. But this is why you're one of my favorite people. Thad.
I love it. So wait, now you're sure though, Thad, that it wasn't corn? Okay,
I'm pretty sure. Yeah,
I want to make sure. Okay.
And see, again, playing against my Mike McMahon pick, I'm pretty sure that joke exists because of that.
Oh, you know what? There's a really good chance that joke exists because of that. I love it. Fantastic. All right, I am having the best time talking about Lower Decks. All right, let's go to my Dabo Round pick. 5 words and a hashtag. Wait, I almost forgot something. Hashtag let's rock and roll. And similar to you, Thad, I picked Grounded I picked Grounded as my episode, but my pick is all the legacy characters and locations that were highlighted this season.
Oh, yes.
It was just, and again, I love fan service. I hate when people act like fan service is something negative. I love when they put stuff in. And none of this is fan service. It's just awesome. It's just this feel-good nostalgia. And my favorite of this was actually Grounded over Hear All, Trust Nothing, because there's something about seeing the Cisco's and hearing the First Contact music and the Phoenix and the whole Zephram Cochrane stuff. That just knocked me out. I just loved it so much. So I'm just going to rattle off everything that I could come up with. If I miss anything, please let me know. These are the characters: Zephram Cochrane, Tuvok, we saw an image, Captain Morgan Bateson from Cause and Effect. We had Martok, we had Leah Brahms that we mentioned earlier, obviously Kira and Quark and Morn, who was sitting there, and Hikaru Sulu, which was awesome to see George Takei playing Sulu again in Paradoxus. So, and then the locations, Cisco's, Bozeman, the Phoenix, the Delta Flyer, incredible seeing the Delta Flyer, Deep Space Nine, Quark's Ops, the Promenade, the Wormhole, we saw that. And then Kirk's house in Generations. All of those things. I had kind of like an overflow list of, like, we saw the Breen, the Interceptors, we saw the Wadi, we saw the Karama, we saw the Brekkians and the Onarans. All of this legacy stuff. I freaking love this show. Thad, what's your take on that list?
Oh, yeah. Amazing. And you're talking about the stuff in Bozeman. I think, honestly, I mean, the DS9 stuff obviously was huge for me, but because we saw that in the San Diego Comic-Con trailer, or at least we saw that they were going to DS9 there, so I was prepared for it.
Right.
Watching Grounded, and when they cut to Bozeman and you hear the First Contact music and you hear James Cromwell's voice, honestly, I teared up a little bit.
Yeah.
It was just amazing.
Yeah, it literally just knocked me out. I love that moment. Sue, what's your take on all these references?
This was one of my secondary systems.
Yeah.
The First Contact amusement park for the production design element.
So good.
Hashtag magic carpet ride.
Oh, thank you. I love it.
All right, buccos, prepare for your trek amongst the stars. Oh, before I forget, let's rock and roll.
No, I thought it was great. I love that they brought in the music. I mean, everything that you've both said.
I think we're supposed to say seated.
First stage separation complete. Let's bring what I like to call the warp core online.
Sorry, Mr. Cochran.
Everything, all of the callbacks, all of the backwards caps, right, that they're wearing.
Right.
And,
Yes.
And I guess my shirt could be a little more asymmetrical. And at Cisco's Creole Kitchen, like it's
so
all
good.
The Ketracel white hot sauce.
it's
God.
so good.
I gotta check the port nacelle real quick.
You think we're dressed okay for court? I mean, my shirt could be a little more asymmetrical.
Wait, what's going on?
Yes, Rutherford's wearing a Jake Sisko outfit, and Boimler's wearing a Wesley Crusher outfit. Just incredible.
I heard somebody recently complain that there were too many Easter eggs in Lower Decks. You can't build a show on Easter eggs. And I'll agree to an extent that you can't build a show on Easter eggs, but there is enough substance in all of these episodes that they're not needed. But I will take them. I will make myself sick on Easter eggs.
Yeah, that's not even close to an accurate description of this show. They are not. They are building a show with heart and emotion and characters that you just never thought you could connect with in a way like this. For me, an animated show, it's incredible. Okay, lots more to cover. 2 more rounds. Let's do it. Round 2. Who's your character, Thad?
All right, my 5 words are friendly ambition for character growth. # science to command is following the best, which never mind. # can be more than five words. I'm fine.
Yeah, as many as you want.
And it's Devon Tendi, who has been my favorite character of the show since season 1. And I really feel like in a lot of ways, Tendi is basically shown to be us, like the viewer sees, because the beginning of Lower Decks, the series starts with Tendi coming on the ship and getting introduced to everything. And I just love her optimism and just enthusiasm for everything. Right. And the fact that they introduced in this season that she wants to become a captain, and she is very excited about that. And that, I love it. And as I was saying, science to command is following the best, because as we know, Captain Catherine Janeway started out as a science officer.
Oh, I like it.
Spock obviously was a science officer. So that is a great path to be on. And I think Tendi had amazing character growth this season. We obviously had in Crisis Point 2 Paradoxus, which would be my pick for this, where she gets to take command in the simulation there. Yeah. And then of course, Here I'll Trust Nothing, the whole Orion backstory where we just get a lot of nice Tendi moments this season, and I just think the character is fantastic, and Noelle Wells does a great job playing her.
She's incredible. You're right. She's had character growth throughout the whole thing, but this was it was so beautiful, and just it was kind of unexpected, that moment in Paradoxus where now it's like, oh, she's moved from medical to science, and now she wants to do command, and that's what she sees for herself. It was so good. I love it. I've said this before on previous Lower Decks. The thing I love about Tendi is that the writers tell the same joke over and over again, the structure, which is that you think she's going to say something negative, and then she turns into a positive with this great, they're about to die. She's like, you know what this means? I'm about to die with my best friend. Every time this joke, and every time it gets me. And I love it. I love her so much. Noelle Wells is incredible. Sue, what's your take on Tendi?
The thing I love about Tendi is that she is a character who is constantly fighting against stereotypes.
Yes.
And that's kind of a heavy theme for this kind of animated show, but it's there. And when you dig into it, you have to examine what Star Trek has told us about Orions in the past.
Yeah.
But they also make it funny. And it's lovely. And she's so enthusiastic, and she's played so well. I love it. They're all us, but she's the character I think who is the biggest Star Trek fan.
Right. I'm so glad you said that, because it comes up so often. The original Crisis Point, it came up in We'll Always Have Tom Paris. And it comes up again in Here All Trust Nothing, where she's playing against the stereotypes, which I was laughing while you were talking because I was thinking of literally one of my all-time favorite Lower Decks jokes is...
Come on, dude, Orions are pirates! Pillaging's your whole thing! Okay, stop! It is not my whole thing. And for your information, many Orions haven't been pirates for over 5 years!
Okay, sorry.
So good. So
but
good.
then she does lean into it, and her friends still like accept and love her, and aren't their opinions about her don't change, and it's just it's such a lovely arc.
That's Mike McMahon. He put an Orion in to play against the Orion stereotype and use it for that exact reason, and it's brilliant. It's brilliant. It's Star Trek. I love it. This show. Thad, your take on Tendi? I mean, no, that was your pick.
That was my pick.
Sue, let's hear your pick. What do you got?
Make a mess of things. #Bones McCat. Talking about T'Ana.
Dr. Tiana. I love
Dr. T'Ana.
She's the best. She's incredible. I think it's the first time she's been picked. I love it.
I mean, everything about this character is like made for me to love her. Just because she's a ginger cat. She wears the lab coat. She's the doctor.
God.
I mean,
Yeah.
check. I'm on board. But until this season, a lot of her interactions have been for humor purely, and sometimes shock value. And did you hear me talking about cats? Yeah. But in the episode I chose, again, mining the mind's minds. Why did I pick the episode that's so hard to say? She becomes a real mentor, and she's talking to Tendi and saying, I wouldn't have recommended you if I didn't think you could do it. So here's what you have to get done. You got to push through. And she's such a better mentor than Miggly Moo. And I think I hope rather that we're going to see that interaction between Tendi and T'Ana more when she has, a training partner, and her assigned mentor, I'm assuming, will not give them what they need.
Yeah, I think you're right. This pick, my mind's racing because, I mean, I love Dr. Tiana. You're so right about seeing her as a mentor. That was just really, again, emotional. It was just really cool to see that, but mostly just how it was reflected with Tendi. But what I really want to ask you both is, what's your headcanon on how she lost her tail? So, because hopefully we'll find that out someday. Dad, what's your take on Dr. Tiana, the foul mouth Cation? I love this pick.
Yeah, I love T'Ana. I remember even after the first trailer, a bunch of fans on Twitter were already calling her Dr. Perlasky, which I love.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
A perfect description, because I love her relationship with Shax. That is incredible. And the idea of making an old grumpy cat for a doctor, again, that was probably Mike McMahon, but I couldn't say that for sure. Right. It's just inspired, because who would have expected that? Yeah,
it is Dr. Perlasky is exactly. It's perfect. It's perfect. And just the foul mouth name. It's just so good. Shout out to Gillian Bigman, the actor that portrays her. She does a great job. It's a great character. We haven't had a full episode about her, right? Like some of the other characters. So, out of the 8,
I don't think so.
She gets the least amount of play. And so a lot of it's just kind of these kind of points of where she just comes in and makes a ruckus and gets out. But it's impactful. So it's great, just a great character. I'm sure at some point we'll see more and get like more of a full episode. Okay, I love it. My character pick to close out this round, 5 words and a hashtag. Thanks for one last race. Hashtag okie dokie. And it is Ensign Samantha Rutherford. And my episode is Reflections. And I gotta say, it's been really impressive for me how each of the each season of this series has had like a core character that was really at the center of kind of a season-long narrative. So season 1 was Mariner, without question. Season 2 was actually Captain Freeman. It was this really kind of unexpected thing where she was part of this, how it all played out. And season 3 is Samantha and Rutherford and this backstory from Reflections. Honestly, I just think that episode is like a masterpiece. I really love it. Super deep. It's really layered and interesting, and I think they accomplished so much with showing kind of his young, brash, aggressive, know-it-all blowhard that was, I don't know, it was just interesting, and I thought it was just a great kind of story about growth and evolution that we all go through, and that moment where you kind of learn and accept that those pieces are part of making you the person you are, that they're essential. So you can't just eliminate them. I just really love that. And Rutherford's all season long, from to Reflections to dangling his feet off the promenade at Deep Space Nine.
Whoa, that's Chief O'Brien's dartboard. Ah, look at that. Bajoran food court. Oh, I should tone it down.
Hey. I love when he supports Tendi in Crisis Point 2, because he's kind of goofing around. But then as soon as she says that, hey, you need to take this serious because I want to be a captain, this is important to me, man, he's such a good friend. He just steps right in and says, we're here. What do you want to do? This is awesome. And you'd be a great captain. It's just great. And the whole thing plays through to the end when, of course, they find out that his code has been used in this plot that's been running through the whole season with the terrible Buen Amigo. And I don't know. I just love the whole thing. So grounded, room for growth, and then Stars at Night. I just think it's amazing. Eugene Cordero, incredible character. Early on, I never really thought he'd be one of my favorites, but man, he's incredible. Thad, what's your take on Rutherford?
I also really love Rutherford. I think he's a fascinating character. I love how we've been building the story of Rutherford and his implant, and we finally get the whole story this season. I really enjoyed that tied into the final episode. I wasn't sure. I was honestly expecting that to get picked back up next season. I wasn't expecting it to be this season. So I liked that we finally got to that. Rutherford is great. Eugene Cordero is also fantastic in that role. Like, you could really see his own range in Reflections when he's playing the two different versions of Rutherford, who are very different and sound different and act different, and both convincingly played by Eugene Cordero. And I think Rutherford is... I'm a broken record. Every time you mention, Thad, what do you think of this thing in Lower Decks? I'm going to say it's great because I love Lower Decks.
Welcome to TrekRanks. That's what we do on TrekRanks.
Great. It's all great.
It's only been 147 episodes if you haven't figured it out yet. I will see his range. You could also see it when he was playing Silvio Toussaint, the Cajun. I'm just going to play it straight.
Mon chéri, I guarantee.
Sue, what's your take on Rutherford and Eugene Cordero? He's just so good.
I really, really loved Rutherford's story this season. In fact, it was almost one of my picks. Yep. And especially Reflections. Like, for me, it was reminiscent of Frame of Mind of the next phase. It was a huge setup. It was so important to the story of the season. We're dealing with character growth and anger and loss. We learn that his surgery wasn't elective,
right?
Which, that's a thing that we haven't quite dealt with. We learned that all his malfunctions that were jokes were his other personality trying to take over. There's so much depth there to this story, and it was done so well.
Yeah, it really was perfection.
Begin round one.
Okay, round one. It's what we do at TrekRanks, our favorite episodes. Thad, I can't wait to hear this.
Okay, my 5 words are film grain and aspect ratio. And the hashtag is the horsey's going to bite you now. It is Crisis Point 2 Paradoxus, which was just a perfect episode. As with the first Crisis Point, the all of the references to movies and were great, and the fact that the aspect ratio changed just like it did in the first one. But even better was the scene when Mariner left the holodeck and she had to step over the black bar at the bottom of the screen, and I just lost it.
So
that
good.
Was but yeah, we had the Romulan triplets as homages to Lursa and B'Etor. Kitty Ha.
Kitty Ha
doesn't make any sense.
Kitty Ha is as good a joke as they've ever had on Star Trek. I laughed so hard. It's just genius. Jeff, absolute genius. Mike McMahon, the guy's a legend. Although this one was written by Ben Rogers, but incredible. Sue, what's your take on Crisis Point 2, Paradoxes?
I mean, is there going to be a movie every season? Because I'm down for it.
Please. Because Vindictive,
or every other anyway.
Crisis Point was genius. It's top 5 for Lower Decks for me. And I think this was better. I love this episode.
Yeah.
But again, dealing with heavy stuff.
Right. Like,
so
how do you do that?
I don't know, but they do it real well.
It's incredible. It's incredible. All right, well, let's get into your pick, Sue. What is your number 1 pick?
Starships can't have daddy issues. # deep in the heart of Texas.
Yes. The stars at night.
The stars at night.
Deep in the heart of Texas.
This is just what this whole season was leading up to, right? There are bits and pieces that filter in from I think every episode prior. We find out, our buen amigo, our good friend, is a badmiral. We get the Van Sitters. Everybody clap that, right?
The Van Sitters. That was in my secondary system. I got emotional when I saw that. That is so cool.
We get our Badgie callback. But truthfully, I'm just a sucker for when an entire fleet warps in to save the day.
Oh, heck yeah.
Oh, God. So good.
So
led by Mariner. So good.
It was such a satisfying conclusion for the season for me.
It really was. I love the M5 computer interface.
Yes.
I love the Buen Amigo reveal. And by the way, the very first scene of the season in Grounded is Buen Amigo talking to Mariner's dad, the admiral, whose name I can't remember, and she calls him Uncle Les, and they talk about truth and the truth always coming out and being revealed. It's incredible. It's like a perfect setup for the ending of this season. It's amazing. It's amazing. We'll get that. What's your take on the stars at night?
Oh, I loved it. Just like every other time you asked me a question.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it was fantastic. It was excellently done. Buen Amigo turning into a badmiral, and the best part was when Freeman is like, you're better than those other admirals that are only in it for their own gain. And he's like, I'm really not.
But by the way, it's so satisfying that you just got blown away.
Yeah.
And the Buen Amigo stuff was there all season long. The setup in trusted sources with the brain, and just one thing after another. It's really kind of and the setup with Deep Space Nine, moving her into the negotiations with the Karama. Really, this show, and you said it, Sue, that they brought back references from the entire season, and they have done that in every season finale. It's incredible. It's a work of art where they have little points of reference to basically every episode of the season in some capacity. It's staggeringly good. Also, T'Lyn at the end, overshadowing it all. Who cares about the? And by the way, the most in-your-face social commentary in the history of Star Trek: California versus Texas.
Oh yeah,
it's like, I think they might be trying to say something. Okay, let's move on. Of course, my favorite 5 words and a hashtag. That reveal makes no sense. Hashtag Kitty-ya. It is Crisis Point 2, Paradoxes. And you mentioned it, Sue, and it's one of my main points. It's just, how do they make this stuff, turn it into therapy for the series leads? They did it with Mariner, they did it with Boimler. they did it. I mean, even Tendi, she got a little bit of therapy in this one with her realization she wants to be captain. Just the way they pull all that off, all the meta sequel jokes that Mariner was telling. They have a Kelvin timeline reference basically, and again, one of my biggest laughs of all of Lower Decks was when they did the Genesis graphics joke, and Rutherford just goes, "Whoa, these graphics are mind blowing!"
And they had the little switches and dials to the left and right of the screen.
I know, perfection. It was perfection.
The best part about that is that in both Wrath of Khan and Crisis Point, those are not there in the wide shot, but only when you zoom in on the screen.
Right. It's so good. It's just
my gosh.
The sequels and cinematic universe references. It's genius. I could not love the Crisis Point series anymore. I'm looking forward to the trilogy. All right. Any final comments on Crisis Point before we go into secondary systems? That's a no. All right, secondary systems. What do you got, Thad?
Let's see what you can do with the secondary systems.
Well, we've covered most things, but I would say I also have the Boimler's Bold Boimler arc as one of my things that I liked this season.
Yes, that was so
especially good. That in classic Lower Decks style, we kind of expect it to like blow up in his face at some point, and it never does.
Right. Yeah, that's true. That's true. And the Section 31 part of this whole thing too, which is cool. It hasn't come up yet. So also I love Cranch. Sorry, what were you saying?
I was gonna say with the Section 31 thing, they bring up, and again, this has to be them side effect of Mike McMahon being constantly on Twitter. They bring up the complaint that so many people had during season 1 and 2 of Discovery, which is that why would Section 31 have their own Starfleet insignia that everybody knows what it is?
Right. I love that. That's now finally canon. I love it. All right, Sue, what do you got?
I did my 5 words in a hashtag for this too.
Oh, great. Rattle them off.
Bigger traitor than Michael Burnham. Hashtag mathematically imperfect.
Oh, I was wondering if this little nugget was going to be mentioned by anybody.
You know, it was a sort of a backup for the Dabo round for me.
Right.
And because it's not the episode and it's not the character, but it's the subversion of the standard Star Trek storyline. I'm going to be the hero now. I'm going to have my redemption. But no, she caused this whole problem.
That's brilliant. Yeah.
And gets locked up next to to Jeffrey Combs.
I had Agamus. Agamus is on my list. I didn't have Peanut Hamper, but I have Agamus. So.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is, with that episode, they took a real big swing, and I think that might be one of the more divisive ones of the season. But like they have the freedom to do that now.
Yeah,
like
it's cool.
They've grown their beard, shall we say?
I mean, let's be honest. It's one of the most divisive episodes in Star Trek history, if not the most.
Yeah.
And I like that about it because I'll be like, I really disliked it. I don't like it because I don't enjoy it, and I want to watch Star Trek, right? I don't want to watch this kind of extra. It was just so out there, but I love that it exists, and people, I just feel like people are either going to love it or dislike it. So, and I watched it again today, and I laughed, and there's a lot, but I always know that if I'm ever just picking an episode, I'm never going to pick it. She just bugs me so much. She's
terrible.
Which is what
terrible.
she's supposed to do.
What she's supposed to be. But yeah, no, it's the subversion of the trope.
Yes,
that I am picking.
Absolutely, that is so good.
The only other thing I have on here that we didn't talk about was Klingon D&D.
Oh yes.
Which I know it had a real name that I didn't bother
Batless and Phoenix.
There you go. I knew it had Batless in it. I didn't bother to pause the screen, but it felt like a combination of D&D, right, and Star Trek Adventures and the 90s VCR game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which Thad and I have played at 2 a.m.
Oh, so jealous.
We have. It was amazing.
That's so awesome. So good. All right, that's fantastic. I had Agamus and Talin, and then I only had one other thing. I just wanted to give a shout out to the Manuki gag from Mass in Room for Growth. It was just so funny. Mariner's just like, oh, we have another ancient Mass situation. Stop touching Mass. I am Manuki. That is so funny. And then it gets a shout out in Crisis Point too.
And it continues to be an issue as they repair from it.
Okay. Another incredible season of Star Trek, but let's now get into our regeneration cycle, recap our picks, and go through some stats.
Computer, activate regeneration cycle. Alcoves Beta and Gamma.
All right, Thad, rattle off your 5 picks again.
All right. My number 5 pick was the Elcar's panel lighting from all of the show, but noticed in Crisis Point 2. My number 4 pick was Fred Tatasciore as Shax. My number 3 pick was visiting DS9 in Here All Trust Nothing. And my number 2 pick was Tendi, the character arc throughout the show, and specifically highlighting Crisis Point 2. And my favorite episode was also Crisis Point 2. A lot of Crisis Point 2.
I think you're the first person to pick the same episode 3 times, so that's fantastic. Good job, Thad, spreading it around. All right, Sue, what is your 5?
Sure. So for production and design, I picked the nightmares or the dreams or the fantasies, whatever you want to call them, from Mining the Mines. Incredible. Oh my God, I'm going to have to say that one more time.
Yep.
For creative, I chose Mike McMahon. And the episode was Here All Trust Nothing. For Dabo Round, I chose T'Lyn returning. That was
because
the Stars at Night.
Awesome.
Number 2 character was Dr. Ta'ana, again, Mining the Mines. And number 1 was The Stars at Night.
I love it. So, like that, you had Stars at Night twice and Mining the Mines twice, which is incredible. And then you had, I'm glad somebody picked Here All Trust Nothing. So that's, Thad picked it too. So.
And I just realized I didn't mention my episode for my number 4 pick was Stars at Night.
Yes, right. Okay. All right, man. My recap for round 5 production design was the scenic art throughout the show. I had the least dangerous game to reflect that. Round 4, my creative was Tawny Newsome from the Stars at Night. Round 3, Dabo Round was legacy characters and locations. Grounded was my episode. Round 2, Ensign, Samantha, and Rutherford as my favorite character from Reflections. And round 1, my favorite episode, Crisis Point 2, Paradoxes. And our only stats I really kept were the episode counts. So the 3 episodes did not get picked. Room for Growth, A Mathematically Perfect Redemption, and Trusted Sources. And then 3 episodes got picked once, Grounded, The Least Dangerous Game, and Reflections. Those were all me. And then Mining the Mines was 2, Here All Trust Nothing was 2, and then Leading the Way, it makes sense. The Stars at Night and Crisis Point 2 Paradoxes both had 4 picks. So covered a lot of ground from this amazing season. I love it. And as we do every week, though, we've been hit by a temporal distortion. So before we can depart, it's time to hear from you.
The temporal distortions are fracturing space-time throughout the ship. Cause?
Unknown. Oh, we know the cause, Mr. Tuvok. It's all the amazing feedback that we continue to receive here from our listeners at TrekRanks. And this week's temporal distortion has sent us back to 2 great lists from episode 138, our Scenes in Trek series. It's our Scenes in Engineering. And our first list is from Adam Sanders, who's been on the show at MetsFan1701. He had 5 great picks. I think a couple were on my list. Kirk versus Khan in Spacey was his number 5. His number 4 was Dr. Crusher's Survival in Remember Me. His number 3, I love, it's Captain Archer is Saving the Day in Twilight in Engineering. His number 2, I don't think this one came up on the show. It's so funny. It was Ben Hugs Jake from The Visitor. And his number 1, a classic, I'll Take You Home Again, Kathleen, as sung by Captain Kevin Riley in The Naked Time. And then another great list was Abby Summer. She had a couple of the same picks, but her first one, Abby Summer, one of our favorites, she had the Redress with Fire, the Elysian Kingdom, where Queen Nev was in engineering with the great set Redress. Her number 4 was the NX-01, hitting Warp 5 for the first time in Fallen Hero, a great pick. Her number 3, Rock plugs in the Warp Matrix in Time Amok and Prodigy, a great moment at the end of that awesome episode. And then she also had Wes phasing and Beverly jumping in Remember Me and TNG. And her number 1 was Ben and Jake embracing in The Visitor, Deep Space Nine. So awesome. Her secondary system was 2 Janeways from Deadlock. I love those 2 lists. So once again, those picks definitely good enough to clear ourselves from this week's temporal distortion. So as always, I want to thank everyone for all your great responses to the TrekRanks podcast. Please keep your list coming to me at TrekRanks on Twitter so we can retweet them. But we also want to hear from you. So put together your own list of top 5 Lower Deck Season 3 moments or a list from any of our past shows. And give us a call at the Tricorder Transmissions at 609-512-5527. That's 609-512-LLAP. Or you can just send me a DM, record it yourself, and we can do it that way. So hopefully we'll hear from you so you can be featured on the next episode of TrekRanks. And on the next episode of TrekRanks, we are doing, it's not good, people. It's episode 147, which means it's time for another episode of Terran TrekRanks. It first reared its ugly head in episode 47, like 4 years ago. We're back to episode 147. The first one was Things We Can't Get Over. This time we're doing our top 5 ridiculous choices. And it's not good, folks.
Oh, boy.
I highly recommend you skip this episode. Do not listen to it. So Thad and Sue, if you had to pick a ridiculous choice in Star Trek off the top of your head, do not tell me what it is.
Off the top of my head, I got to go with Sub Rosa. The choice to do pretty much everything in that episode.
That's a perfect pick. Thank you, Sue. A ridiculous choice.
The first thing that came to mind was Amphibian Troy in the bathtub.
Oh my God.
In Genesis.
That was awesome. Come on.
I love Genesis.
Oh God.
I do too, but it was also ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. But you know what the best thing about that is? Marina Sirtis fully committing. She was amazing as an amphibian in a pool, in a bathtub. It was amazing. Okay. All right. We are not looking forward to that one. All right. So before we wrap it up, a huge thanks to Thad Hait and Sue Kisenwether. Awesome having you guys on.
I was wondering if you could show me how to access these subspace communications logs.
And we're going to do that right now, Neelix. So any final Trek subspace communications, either one you want to relay before we depart? Thad, now you can promote Infinite Diversity.
All right. Well, yeah. Check me out on Infinite Diversity on the BQN Podcast Collective. We're on Twitter at ITIC Podcast, where we talk about every new episode of Star Trek the Tuesday after it airs.
And Sue, thanks for making time to come back on. It's awesome having you back.
It was awesome to be back. Thanks. And if you want to hear me talk about Star Trek some more, you can head on over to womenatwarp.com.
Love it. All right. Thanks, everyone, for engaging with us here on episode 146 of the TrekRanks podcast. As always, I want to close by saying I'm looking forward to standing with you again here in this place where I belong.
Kitty Hawk? Kitty Hawk? That reveal doesn't make any sense! My movie is trash! It doesn't have a deeper meaning, and neither does life! I should have stayed a raisin farmer! I could have married Leanne!
Just want to remind everyone again that the entire TrekRanks catalog is available for you to download and listen to at TrekRanks.com and on your podcast player of choice. Our episodes never get carbon dated, so check out the topics you've missed and maybe just want to listen to again over at TrekRanks.com. And a reminder to check out our friends 5-Year Mission at 5yearmission.net. They're writing a song for every episode of Star Trek, and you won't believe how great their music is. They also have a podcast at the Trek Geeks Network, so seek them out. You won't regret it.
Sir, how do we do that?
I don't know. Just circle around and pretend we're in awe of the pylons.
Yes, sir.
Just keep circling.